Hey, everybody. Thank you so much for joining me tonight. This is episode number 2, and I'm going to share with you tonight one of my most prized possessions. It's one I haven't had that long. Picked it up in a recent heritage auction, and the reason I bought it is because it just reached out and grabbed me. I know that sounds crazy, but it did. It reached out and grabbed me. I was going through the auction online like I always do and putting a few placer bids on a couple of items. And I do look at autographed balls on occasion. I've got a couple in my collection. Nothing as awesome as this with the story and everything. But I saw this item, and it wasn't just the item. It's not just an autographed baseball. It's the story behind the item is what really got me. So just a little backstory. I have 3 children. My oldest is 31, and she is an amazing interior designer in Nashville and graduated college with an interior design degree. She's always been so creative. She grew up playing softball. I coached her. She started when she was 5 years old. She's 31 now. So my wife and I, our journey with our kids playing sports started when our oldest was 5, and that was 26 years ago. And then our son came along 2 years later, and he works with me at my company and does a fantastic job. And he was a really gifted athlete himself, played baseball, played basketball, played football. I coached all those sports when he was growing up, and he really kind of gravitated towards the end at baseball. He was a really good baseball player, especially in high school. And our youngest daughter, she's 23. She grew up at the ball fields. That's all she ever knew. So she became an avid baseball fan. She played basketball as well growing up, played volleyball, but she loved playing sports, and she was just wired that way. And so this item really reminded me of her. So my wife and I had been on this journey with our children like many of you guys have done. And when your kids hit a certain age, you start having things at church with them. You have field trips at school. You have homework. They start playing sports. You got to get them to practices in the evenings. If they start playing club ball or travel sports, you've got to get them to the ballpark on the weekends. And many weekends are spent out of town. They're spent just hours and hours. Well, that's what we did. Our youngest was able to play college softball at the Division I level, and she got a 5th year because of COVID, ended her season as a freshman. So for 5 years, the way this all ended was us going all over the country watching her play softball. I think she played, 214 games in her college career, and we were at all of them but 2. So it was a lot. So we started mourning our children and them not needing us anymore, and we didn't even have games to go to anymore. And then I seen this item. And so the item has to do with a young lady, Veronica Meehan, and she got to meet Babe Ruth one day. So the deal is with this one, though, what's different about this ball? Sure, this was her ball. There's a Type 1 photo showing the moment the ball was signed. Shows her in the image, Babe's in the image, and there's also the story behind it. So Babe Ruth, just kind of go back a little bit. This is, when he met her, he only had 13 months to live. So, he was towards the end of his life. And in the fall of 1946, a year before this event happened with the baseball, he started having a lot of pain above his left eye. So he went into the hospital and they did some tests, and he had a malignant tumor in his neck. And it was giving him a lot of pain. He couldn't hardly swallow. And so he had to have surgery. So in November of 1946, they went in, took the tumor out. They couldn't get all of it, but the tumor had wrapped itself around some nerves. It had almost completely encircled his carotid artery. So when they did the surgery, they had to sever some nerves. They also had to tie that artery off. So it really affected the babe. And he was in a lot of pain, and he had to stay in the hospital for 3 months. They fed him intravenously, and he lost 80 pounds. They also did some radiation on him, and so he was extremely weak. So 3 months later, in February of 1946, he gets out, and he goes down to Florida and tries to recoup in the sun and hopes to play some golf if he's feeling up to it. He really wasn't. So in June, they did a treatment on him. And let me backtrack first. In April, Happy Chandler, who was the commissioner of baseball at the time, they started realizing Babe was getting up there and his health wasn't that great. So they had Babe Ruth Day, and it was throughout the entire major leagues. And the main festivities were right there at Yankee Stadium. So they even piped in on the radio the speeches and everything from that day at Yankee Stadium. And if you've ever seen the video of Babe Ruth speaking in the microphone, he's got a kind of a tannish camel hair overcoat on, and he had that I don't want to imitate him, but his voice was kind of froggy and it just was real scratchy. He couldn't hardly talk. That was how he was at the time. So in June, they started doing this experimental treatment on him, which had to do with vitamin B complex. And he did rebound a little bit. This cancer went into remission a little bit. He talked to the Ford Motor Company, and they wanted him to go on a tour of some of the bigger cities in the Northeast, the United States, on behalf of American Legion Baseball. So he was lending his name to help kids play ball, and he was at Shibe Park in Philadelphia because of that reason. And it was the American Legion All-Star Game, 10-year-olds. And it had to be such a thrill for those kids to get to play on a major league field. I can't even imagine myself growing up in Nashville. We didn't have a major league field. So if I'd have got to play at Greer Stadium, home of the Nashville Sounds, how huge that would have been for me. So they're there playing. Babe is in attendance. Chief Bender's in attendance. And little Veronica Meehan, it's unknown. She either got the game-winning hit or she scored the game-winning score. She had her pigtails tucked up in her oversized hat, so you couldn't really tell she was a boy unless you looked closely. She also went by Ronnie. So if they announced her name over the intercom, it would have been Ronnie Meehan. So Babe's sitting back there. He wanted to meet the boy who was the MVP. So as the boy comes walking up to him and takes her hat off and her braids fall out, he realized quickly it was a cute little girl, and he got a big kick out of that from what they said, and was signing a ball for her. So that's the history behind the ball. Now, as far as the auction goes, I had to have this ball. And again, it kind of grabbed me, and it was hitting me where I lived. It reminded me of one of my kids, and I wanted this ball. The only problem I had was, it was a major problem, was I was going to be at a wedding when the final part of the auction went off. And yeah, it was at 10 p.m., but the wedding was in Hawaii. It was my niece's wedding. So I couldn't get on my phone and bid. And I was scared if I put a high bid, somebody beat me out. So I reached out to a good friend of mine, Greg Miller with Midlife Cards on YouTube. And I knew he lived in California, so the time difference wouldn't be that bad for him. I think it would have been 8 p.m. When the auction the extended bidding was starting. So I gave him my sign-on and my password and gave him some parameters, told him what I was willing to go up to, and told him I really wanted the ball, but just to keep texting me, keep me up to date, because I would look at a text, but I wouldn't get on the auction site. So that's what he did. And he had his dad was all invested in watching the auction, almost like, they were cheering me on and wanted to see me get the ball so bad. Mookie Chilson, he had let him in on what was going on in New Jersey. Mookie is like all in as well. So um, I got the ball, and I was so excited. I could not wait. I told my wife, she was excited. I told my brother-in-law, whose daughter was getting married, he was excited. He was telling his friends about it. So I've got the ball. I've got the newspaper clipping. I've got the Type 1 photo, and I'm about to show you all those here in just a minute. I'm going to keep these in my collection until the day I don't collect anymore. And at that point, I'm not sure what I'll do with them, but I felt called to be the keeper of her legacy and her me. That ball was so important to her. She kept it her entire life. She kept it her whole life. She died in the 80s, and I don't know the background on what happened. She passed it on to her brother in her will. He had lost his ball somewhere along the line, probably went out and did like in the movie The Sandlot and hit it over the fence. Some big dog ate it. I don't know. But he didn't have his ball anymore. Why she thought she could trust him, I don't know either. But what happened was he had a couple of sons, and their mother, Veronica's sister-in-law, didn't trust them with the ball being in the house. So she put it in a safe deposit box when they were very young and didn't even tell them it existed. Now, they told them the story about their Aunt Ronnie meeting Babe Ruth, and they had always heard the story. They had no idea the ball existed. They knew their dads had been lost to time, and for all they knew, their Aunt Ronnie's ball was gone as well. When they were moving their elderly parents, Ronnie's brother, out of their house, they came upon the keys to the safe deposit box, and it reminded their mother of the ball. Thank goodness. And so she told them, Aunt Ronnie's ball is in a safe deposit box. At this point, they lived in Wisconsin, and it was in a safe deposit box there in Milwaukee. So they go to the safe deposit box and they open it up, and sure enough, the ball's there. No one had touched it for many years, and so it was pristine. So they decided, don't know why, to put it in the auction. I'm glad they did, because I'm glad I get to be the safekeeper of the ball. So that's it. We're going to look at these items, and I'll be right back, and we'll have some fun. All right, everybody, here are the items I was just telling you about. I can't wait to show you. And, the first big item, obviously, is the ball. And it's got a really bold, large signature right on the sweet spot, blue ink. It looks like it was signed yesterday. And everybody knows the Babe and his signature. It's very well known. They did what a lot of people did back then, and they put a thin layer of shellac over it to kind of protect the signature. And they didn't do the entire ball, just the signature area. And then we have Charles Chief Bender, and he was at the game as well, and put Chief in quotes. I think that's pretty cool. I just got through reading a book about him written by Tom Swift. It's called Chief Bender's Burden, and it's very interesting. I would highly recommend it. And if you don't know, Chief Bender was American Indian. His mother was, his father wasn't. And he became one of the big game pitchers for Connie Mack and his Philadelphia Athletics team back in the dead ball era and during their dynasty. So that's the ball. And this is the Type 1 photo. And it's just as important as the ball in this case, because, again, a lot of people have Babe Ruth balls, but I don't know a whole lot of people that actually have the time it was autographed documented. So in the photo, we can see Babe. You can see his age. He is putting the signature on the ball at that very moment. We're not really sure who this man is here. I thought it was Chief Bender when I bought the ball and bought this item, but it's not. He didn't have a widow's peak hairline, so it can't be him. And then you have little Veronica, and she's precious. She's got her little ball uniform on. She's staring at the ball with anticipation. She's got her little braids, her ribbon in her hair, her glove around her wrist. She's holding the other baseball in her hand, and she's got her sleeves rolled up. I'm sure they were probably too long for her. And that is a moment that's just frozen in time. It's amazing to me. And to have the ball that was in Ruth's hand at the time, she was brave enough to ask for another ball for her brother who played first base. And Ruth obliged. And so in the story, that there's a document that her brother typed out, and there was notarized for the auction. He's saying this is her ball that's getting autographed here. His ball was when he was sitting down, and it's in the newspaper article I'm about to show you. And he lost his over time, and she kept hers dear. And when she passed away in the 1960s, she willed it to her brother. And then he's the one who consigned it to the auction. The other thing that's interesting about this photo, because I've looked at it quite a bit, is I used to love to look at photos of Michael Jordan hitting game-winning shots or Tiger Woods hitting a putt, and you look at the people in the background, and it's really cool. Everybody's looking, just about everybody. They are looking at the interaction between Veronica and Babe, and a lot of them are smiling. These two guys back here, are getting a kick out of it. You got the lady up here in the corner. She's trying to get a look around them. But it's a really cool moment. I'm sure everybody there, probably talked about it the next day or that night when they got home about Veronica getting to meet the babe. So that's this picture. Before I show you the newspaper clipping, here's the other photo I found online. At this point, he's handing her the ball, and it's the same event, just a little different angle, and she's starting to turn away, and you can see the other ball is a little more visible in her hand. But it's pretty cool, like I said, to have this moment frozen in time and be able to see the exact moment that ball was signed and the interaction happened. The next item is the newspaper clipping. Now, up at the top, it has the date, Philadelphia Evening Bulletin on July 28, 1947. I don't know whether she wrote that, her mom wrote that. I have no idea who glued this to a piece of cardboard, but it's obviously been there a while, and it's kept it safe. This is when he's signing her brother's ball, and it's a little different angle. You can see her face very clearly, and he had sat down. I don't know whether he was just weak, whether she walked away and got another ball. I don't know. It says, Babe Ruth, once great right fielder of the New York Yankees and Major League home run champion of all time, autographs the ball for 10-year-old Veronica Meehan, and it has her address, who plays the same position for Midget League team in Kensington. Babe is occupying the box at Shibe Park during the American Legion Junior All-Star Game. And it reads right above it, we right fielders have to be pals. So that's another part that came in the auction. There's nothing written on the back. It's just blank. So that's really cool too. And then a guy that I know on Facebook that researches things, he's part of Sabre. I showed him the photo and the ball, and he thought it was really cool. And he even looked it up and found this. And this was in the paper as well. I don't know which paper. But you even know what they said to each other. And Babe said to the one girl, Veronica Meehan, had her address, who's the same address we just saw in the other one, who plays with the Front and Westmoreland team and has a 300 batting average. Ruth said, they tell me you are quite a ball player. How many home runs have you hit? When she answered one, he added, you need to hit 713 more to tie me. So we even know the interaction. He was really nice to her and tried to put her at ease. And also knowing his health at the time, you can even imagine a little bit about what his voice probably sounded like. So again, here's the ball. And this will be something that I cherish and love to tell her story. And then, I show these pictures as well. So if you, just to kind of show you how much it reminds me of my daughter, my youngest. This is her at the same age Veronica was, and we had just gotten back from spring training, and my cousin was the bench coach on Ron Gardenhire's staff with the Minnesota Twins, so we would get to go in the dugout for BP and she would get to meet Maurer and Torrey Hunter and Justin Morneau and Nick Punto and Kadair and all those guys. And she would look like her in that picture, standing there in awe of somebody who was a hero to her and was signing a ball for her. My son would be in there too. He got to be the bat boy for the Orioles game one spring. And then, I don't know what ended up happening with Veronica. Did she keep playing ball? I have no idea, but this is my daughter later on. This is her last year in college, playing at Florida Atlantic University, FAU. And this is her hitting in the NCAA regionals at the University of Florida in Gainesville. It's one of her last at-bats of her college career. And she was able to get her college paid for playing softball. But anyways, they just reminded me a lot of each other. I'll finish up the talk here in just a second, talk about the aftermath with Babe Ruth and some more details, and I'll be right back. All right, guys, I'm back. I hope you enjoyed looking at those items, and me telling her story is very special. I will continue to tell the story. And just to kind of expand on it a little bit on why I found this item so special, there's another reason. Girls can be huge baseball fans too. Girls, a lot of times when they play athletics, are told, well, guys are better. And if they show some women's highlight, whether it be basketball, softball, whatever, there's always this dude on Twitter that wants to tell her to get back in the kitchen and cook something or whatever and just be crude. It's so unfair. And I'm not even going to get into men parading as women and playing in women's sports. That's a whole nother, that'll get me fired up. But, girls can be huge baseball fans as well. And my daughter, when I would tuck her in at night, this was the book I read her. It's called Players in Pigtails. And it's about the women's baseball league that was made famous by the League of Their Own movie. And she loved for me to read her that book. And she would tell me, Dad or Daddy, I will be the first girl to ever play Major League Baseball. And I would go along with it. And I wasn't going to squash her dreams. But, obviously, she was never going to be strong enough. But what she could do, she could be the best of what she could be. And she, like many girls, gravitated towards softball and fast pitch. And she was really good at it. And was able to get her college paid for. But anyways, when she would have been little Veronica, and she had the pigtails, and she was a standout. She would have been the MVP, and she would have been playing with the boys. She could have, we lived next door to my brother when she was little, and my brother has a son a year younger than her, and he has a daughter a year older than her. My daughter could be playing Barbies in their bonus room one minute and go out and play wiffle ball in the backyard with the boys in the neighborhood the next. She could live in both worlds and loved it. And so that's who she was. And I'm sure Veronica or Ronnie was the same way. So Ronnie kept that ball in her dresser drawer all those years, wrapped up in cotton. And when she passed away, they found it and they saved it. I'm sure it was hard for them to let go of the ball. But maybe, I don't know whether, was Ronnie married? Did she have children? If she had children, why didn't they get the ball? I don't know any of these answers. It's not that it's that important, because she's frozen in time as a 10-year-old little girl standing in front of Babe Ruth. I've stood in front of baseball immortals when I was a kid. When I was 14, I was blessed enough to have Mickey Mantle sign a ball and a card for me. I'm going to do a video about that. And at that moment in time, my heart was beating, my palms were sweating, and I could not believe I was standing in front of Mickey Mantle. And she was doing the same thing. So Babe Ruth, he after that, he became much more weak. And in later on in September of that year, they had another Babe Ruth Day. And for that day, you had Cy Young and Tris Speaker and Ty Cobb and a bunch of the old timers showed up at Yankee Stadium for an old timers day in honor of another Babe Ruth day. Babe showed up as well, and he was not able to play, and that was really sad, obviously. And so he was there in attendance, and in June of the next year, they had the final Babe Ruth Day, and that was at Yankee Stadium. And that is when he dressed up in his uniform. There's the Pulitzer Prize winning photograph from behind where he's leaning on a bat and he's in his uniform and he's got his number 3 in the pinstripes. And that's when that picture was taken. And then he passed away in August of 1948. So 13 months after that picture was taken and he signed that ball, he passed away. So very sad that, he died the way he did, died of cancer. He kind of wasted away towards the end. But towards the end of his life, he kind of started, he'd always had a soft spot in his heart for the children. But doing what he did and going around to these parks and trying to bring his name to kids' baseball was a pretty powerful thing. So, hope you enjoyed this. I hope I didn't bore you to death. If you liked it, share it with some other people. And don't forget to subscribe to my channel. Thank you so much.